As you're looking at this Falcon Heavy rocket here at the heart of Launch Complex 39A, you'll notice that the side boosters, and you can see a little bit of that center core as well, all shiny and new. All three of these first stage boosters that SpaceX is using today in support of this mission are brand new, launching for the very first time. Talk a little bit more about why SpaceX is using brand new boosters on this flight. Helps to work into their model of reusability. We'll hear more from a SpaceX representative a little bit later on in the broadcast. We also noticed, though, above the three boosters there, you see that gray band just beneath the second stage, the bottom of the second stage. That band helps keep the liquid oxygen on board the Falcon Heavy second stage at the right temperature, as this is going to be a very long coast phase for this mission to send the GOES-U satellite into a geo transfer orbit. We are currently T-minus 1 hour, 48 minutes, 19 seconds and counting. We do have the full team out in force today, with the exception of our friend Chuck Briggs, who's taken some well-deserved time off. But Pete Carson's with Max Q Productions will be out with us today, as well as our launch photography team of Adam Bernstein and Michael Kane. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button to allow more folks to find their way to our live coverage. And if you are in the Central Florida area hoping to see this launch for yourself, you may have noticed it is quite hot and steamy out there today. The weather coming into this launch opportunity is also something that has been closely tracked in the days leading up to today, launch day. And in just a couple of minutes, we're actually going to be joined by a launch weather officer from the 45th Weather Squadron to break down where we are currently with the weather outlook for launch, some of the things that the meteorologists are tracking, and what the probability of go is for an on-time liftoff at the start of the window. So we'll be back in just a couple of minutes with that live interview. So stand by, enjoy the views of the pad, and we'll be back with you with commentary momentarily.
Are you driving way less than you used to? Do you have a clean driving record? Are you over 25? Do you not have a DUI? Then you're likely paying too much for car insurance, and you can drop it to as low as $38 per month.
Welcome back, everyone. You're watching our live coverage of the NASA NOAA Goes U mission. We're currently T-minus 1 hour, 39 minutes, 47 seconds and counting to lift off of the Falcon Heavy rocket. Welcome back, everyone. We've been talking about the weather for this mission, not only because it's a weather observing satellite, so we're currently T-minus 1 hour, 39 but also because weather may play spoiler to this, still TBD. We've been talking about the weather for this mission, not only because it's a weather observing satellite, at least up to this point, the weather's still currently being tracked, but also because weather may play spoiler to this, still TBD. Been with them though, we're joined by someone who has all the answers, at least up to then. Melody, welcome to the show.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And so, obviously, the weather, important for the variety of reasons that I just mentioned. At this point in time, how are we looking as far as the probability of violation, or, put another way, the likeliness that weather will play spoiler for a 516 launch?
Well, it seems like we have a window of opportunity at the beginning of the launch window, so right around 5 o'clock. Right now, the probability of violation is 50% at the beginning, but it gets worse throughout the window. So it increases to 70%, or otherwise known as a 30% no-go at the end of the window. And that's mainly due to thunderstorm development inland, spreading some anvils across, possibly to the pad, towards the end of launch. We actually currently are no-go for the detached anvil rule. We are expecting to clear for that, hopefully within the next 10 minutes or so. But we may be in and out of it for a little while as far as go and no-go conditions.
And your colleague, Brian Sizik, was talking yesterday during the pre-launch weather briefing about some of the things that you and the team are tracking. How much of those are still in play, if not all of them at this point?
They are all still in play because we are still expecting thunderstorms. But at this point in time, it seems like the sea breeze has marched inland just enough where our primary concerns are going to be anything having to do with anvil, so detached anvil or attached anvil. We can't rule out those other thunderstorm probabilities though for surface electric field mill rule, lightning rule, cumulus cloud rule, still but very much in play, but anvil, especially since we're currently no-go for detached anvil, that's going to be our primary player.
And for those of us who live in Central Florida, it's June. We're used to, afternoon thunderstorms just being a part of the norm. Coming into this opportunity, looking at the T-3, T-2, T-1, or L-1, the launch weather forecast stayed pretty static.
Yes.
Is that pretty much to be expected for a launch this time of year? Does it seem, out of the ordinary?
I would say it's certainly not out of the ordinary. 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. In late June, we all know we're going to getting thunderstorms. Exactly where is the key, though. So with this setup, we were expecting pretty solid westerly flow. It hasn't quite materialized, it's become weaker than we were expecting. So because of that, we have more of an opportunity, which you've seen with our trending forecast today, 50% going to 70 instead of just a solid 70. But I know my colleagues and I, when we saw the timing of this launch, that it would be 5 to 7 p.m. in late June, we were a little worried.
A little skeptical.
A little skeptical.
And so, when you're trying to thread the weather needle, so to speak, when you're a launch provider like SpaceX or ULA, talk to us about how that process of sort of narrowing down within a launch window, feeling hasn't started, what goes into sort of keying into a key time. Obviously once a violation clears, that certainly helps.
Yes.
But how do you kind of narrow beyond that?
It's very hard. It's very hard. The hardest part about our jobs is providing the best recommendation for the T0, especially in a weather scenario like this where we could be no-go at the beginning, go in the middle, no-go at the end. So it's all about just what the current conditions are and how we expect the boundaries to collide and form and where those openings could be. It's very much nowcasting. We've got a lot of great high-res models to help us, but when it comes down to it, when we're on console, we really just have to look at how the evolution is currently and just know with instinct what will happen. So it's a challenge, very much so. 3 days prior, forecasting is in
Our thanks again to Launch Weather Officer Melody Levin for making us all a little bit smarter about launch weather and the odds of moving forward with the Go Zoo launch coming up now less than an hour and a half away. We are currently T-minus 1 hour, 25 minutes, 48 seconds and counting. Certainly want to thank the more than 3,900 of you that are joining with us live this afternoon. If you haven't already, it would be very much appreciated if you could hit that like button. It allows more folks to find their way into our live coverage as we continue to roll along here. Also want to thank some of our channel members for kicking us off with some generosity here. To Callisti Lee and Mark Otto for gifting 10 Spaceflight Now memberships apiece. Same to Mitchell Wilbur, also with 10 memberships. And to Ray M, gifting a Spaceflight Now membership. Appreciate that from all of you. And to our newest 31 channel members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. Be sure to thank Callistia, Mark, Ray, and Mitchell in the live chat if you haven't already. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, shop.spaceflightnow.com, access to member-only videos here on YouTube, and the ability to watch all the moments of liftoff from here at the Cape in 4K. Also, if you'd like to be a part of our show and you have a comment or question that is appropriate to be read on our broadcast, you could use the YouTube Super Chat feature, like one of our wonderful channel members, Roskin. $5 Super Chat, who apparently was gifted channel membership by Ray M. Before we move along any further, certainly want to thank our wonderful moderators in the live chat. See, Callisti Lee is working hard, holding it down. Keep our eyes out. Oh, I see Astro Jen is with us this afternoon. We'll look for Astro Joe and Stephanie B, Rusty Shackelford as well. If you were just joining us and happened to miss our live interview with Launch Weather Officer Melody Levin, she mentioned that the team with the 45th Weather Squadron tracking a detached anvil cloud, which were the launch to be happening now, as in if the rocket were fueled and they were preparing to lift off, the weather would be no-go because of that detached cloud and the fact that it still carries the charge with it from the thunderstorm that it came from. So as you're wrapping up that interview, that impact had not cleared, but we'll continue to keep our eyes open for any further updates from the 45th Weather Squadron. We're currently T-minus 1 hour, 21 minutes, 45 seconds and counting from the current T0 for the Falcon Heavy rocket supporting the NASA and NOAA GOES-U mission. This particular weather satellite is the fourth and final in the GOES-R series, a critical tool for meteorologists around the country. We are preparing for another live interview in the next couple of minutes, so be sure to hit that like button as we're about to get started with that. It allows more folks to find our live coverage. In the meantime, we had the opportunity to talk with a lot of folks in the run-up to this mission. Very appreciative for their time. Want to bring you part of one of our interviews with a representative of NOAA. For those unfamiliar, that is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. We had the opportunity to speak with Dr. Michael Morgan. He's the Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Environmental Observation and Prediction. Here's part of our conversation. Gives you a good sort of overview, if you will, a Reader's Digest snapshot of the GOES-U spacecraft and its importance to the overall NOAA mission.
What's been most important and what we've learned over the last, the series of the previous 3 launches has been the success of the GOES mission. The GOES instruments provide information not only about terrestrial weather, but one of the important aspects of this is we're adding a new component to it which helps us with our space weather forecasting as well. So it's both terrestrial, Earth-based weather, as well as space weather. And these have improved our ability to detect fires at the ground. We have the capabilities right now to be able to detect a fire the size of a small barn from orbit, which I think is just really incredible. We have the lightning detection system, that's the GLM, the GOES lightning mapper, which is a geostationary lightning mapper, which allows us to see flashes in space, from space, which can allow us to detect where, particularly in dry conditions, fires might actually start. We can detect the smoke from those fires and see how it propagates, how it moves around the surface of the Earth, impacting air quality in rural as well as urban areas. So it's been a wonderful series of missions with the prior GOES. This next one has this additional component, which is called the compact coronagraph. This is a system, telescope, that allows us to sort of blot out the solar disk and see the corona, be able to image the corona of the sun, which allows us to detect what are called coronal mass ejections. These are big surges of magnetic field as well as plasma from the sun's upper atmosphere, possibly toward the Earth, so we can understand where these surges are directed, these coronal mass ejections are directed, which then influences ultimately space weather if they're directed toward Earth. We can actually see the auroras that we saw back in May of this year when we had some strong geomagnetic storms. These are detectable from the growing instances occurring on the surface of the sun and as they propagate through space. So it's about improving our space weather prediction, it's about improving our terrestrial prediction, looking at severe storms.
welcome back. You're watching our live coverage here on Spaceflight Now's YouTube channel. Currently T-minus 1 hour, 14 minutes, 30 seconds and some change before the planned launch of the GOES-U satellite built by Lockheed Martin. And fortunately, we're very lucky to be joined by a member of the Lockheed Martin team. This is Dylan Powell. He is the strategy lead for weather and earth science, and he helped get the GOES-R program off the ground for Lockheed Martin. Dylan, it's good to have you with us.
Great to be here. Absolutely. Really excited about the launch.
Absolutely, and so are we. Just keeping an eye on that detached anvil cloud and the
Right.
nonsense it's getting up to. But want to talk about your time with the program and sort of getting the ball rolling, being a part of that team. When you were starting to form the idea and meet the requirements that NASA NOAA had set out for the GOES-R series, what was that like? Walk us through the thinking behind it, the instrumentation that was built in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I started all the way back in 2005 on the GOES-R proposal as a straight out of actually Goddard as an atmospheric scientist, and so I was part of the ground team for Lockheed Martin's proposal that interacted with the space team. But my focus was on the science, the algorithms, the data products, and really what the real focus for that team, because we had never flown a GOES satellite before. It was the first time Lockheed Martin had bid our A2100 commercial bus for a mission like GOES. And so we really had to focus on designing a spacecraft that could accommodate the instruments. These instruments are very complex, very sensitive. They have to have the right thermal environment, the right mechanical environment, and stability. The spacecraft has to point so that these instruments can do their scanning and collect the data they need to. So we really focused on instrument accommodation and integration for our solution, and we were lucky enough to be awarded 16 years ago, and now we're back here for the last of the satellites to be launched in that series, and we're really excited about it.
And as you were crafting that proposal and sort of laying the groundwork, how much did the prior GOES satellites sort of play in your thinking, and what was the process of trying to move that ball forward and build it out to what it is today?
Yeah, so this GOES-R series and their RSTU today is launching U was a real step function in capability for NOAA with the Advanced Baseline Imager instrument from the previous series of GOES satellites. So there really was a lot of change that needed to happen to the way the spacecraft operates, particularly the stability and pointing of the spacecraft. And so that was really the biggest challenge, was just accommodating that new instrument, that fantastic instrument that brings us all those great pictures of tropical storms and weather events. So that was really the focus. And with the GOES satellite, it's also not just an Earth weather satellite, it's a space weather satellite. In fact, it flies more space weather instruments than Earth instruments. And so that was another aspect. We have a sun pointing platform out on the yoke of the solar panel that actually points at the sun. And so integrating all those instruments onto that sun pointing platform was a real challenge. And especially with GOES-U, we've added a new instrument, NOAA's C-Core instrument, a compact coronagraph, that will allow us to image the coronal ring of the sun, looking for these disastrous CMEs that can impact technology here on Earth. So that's it's been an exciting run, and I think with GOES-U and the on-ramp of the C-Core instrument, it's a great example of on-ramping new technology, not even in the middle of the program, for the last satellite and the changes that come with that. The team just did a phenomenal job with their NASA partners, with NOAA, to be able to accommodate that new instrument that the satellite was never designed to host.
Right, and given the prominence that solar activity is having right now in the United States, given all the solar flares that we've seen, the aurora that made its way down to all 50 states, do you think that's helping the conversation and sort of spark the imagination of folks that we're watching that phenomenon and now we're looking at coverage like this and thinking of oh well, with that capability on orbit, I could do this, that, or the other thing.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it's, I think, I know a lot of friends of mine were talking about auroras, and I live in Maryland where we don't have auroras. So
we don't here in Florida either.
You're right. And so I think that event was an eye opener for a lot of people to understand that the solar weather can really impact life here on Earth. And NOAA has taken is really the only operational agency for space weather in the world today. They have created their new space weather observations organization that's going to focus on the new architecture for space weather. GOES-U is part of that. The C-Core instrument, the compact coronagraph, is really filling the gap that the NASA SOHO instrument provides data for us today, and that's 25 years old. So we really need this observation, along with SWIFO L1 is going to launch. That's a spacecraft that'll be 1 million miles away between the Earth and Sun. That will also have a C-Core instrument. So NOAA is building out an operational architecture to give us early warnings of the solar activity so that we can respond.
Yeah, I think one of the folks in a prior briefing described it as a stereoscopic view of the sun, which is something that doesn't currently exist, and they're really excited to have, on orbit. Before we let you go, speaking of looking down the road, you're involved in the next generation of satellites. This is the end of the GOES series, but GeoXO is the next follow-on. Talk to us about, Lockheed just got awarded the contract for that. So how were you thinking about crafting that proposal and, bringing the instrumentation needed to, further advance from where we are right now?
We're just overjoyed that we were fortunate enough to be selected as the follow-on spacecraft provider for GeoXO. GeoXO is the geostationary extended observations. So NOAA is adding new instruments, a new satellite in the centrally located position between the east and west GOES satellites. They're going to fly a hyperspectral infrared sounder, which will provide near real-time atmospheric vertical temperature and moisture, which really impacts these hyper-local weather models. So we'll be able to improve our weather forecasting with that instrument. We're also adding an air quality instrument that will scan the entire CONUS for bad air. And we all know that that's a real problem. More people die from bad air than weather every year. And then we're also adding an ocean color instrument on the east and west satellites. So all of that is actually being incorporated into our new LM2100 bus, which is basically the direct lineage to the A2100, which is GOES-U. And so that bus is now going to accommodate all this additional instrumentation. But fortunately, with the design of GOES, we've already really figured out how to point the spacecraft, how to keep it stable. And so we're taking that technology and bringing it into GeoXO so that we've got all that bought down, NRE and learning that we're going to bring forward into GeoXO and make that successful, because it's a really important now, particularly with climate change and the weather changing so rapidly and how it impacts everybody. We need these observations. And we can't wait to get those launched in 2032. So.
I was going to say, it's going to be here before you know
yeah,
it. Dylan, thank you so much for joining us today.
I enjoyed it. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. And as you can see with the countdown clock behind me, we're just a little over an hour away from hopefully seeing the launch of this Falcon 9 and the finale of the GOES series of satellites. Got lots more commentary coming up, so stick around with us. We're going to throw back to some live pictures of the pad. We'll be back with more commentary right on the other side of this. Our thanks again to Dylan Powell. Again, he's the Lockheed Martin strategy lead for weather and earth science. Certainly appreciate Lockheed Martin and giving us some insight into both the GOES-U spacecraft, the GOES-R series program, and then looking forward to the future with the GeoXO constellation. Currently T-minus 1 hour, 3 minutes, 53 seconds and counting to the planned liftoff of this Falcon Heavy rocket. The GOES-U satellite up top. Currently about 10 minutes away from the point at which the SpaceX launch director will need to make a call on the start of propellant load for this mission if they are in fact ready to go and they feel like the weather is going to play ball. So before that happens, let's go ahead and step through the countdown timeline for today's Falcon Heavy mission. Again, this will be the 10th Falcon Heavy flight for SpaceX. A little bit different, of course, for a Falcon Heavy versus a Falcon 9 mission. Got 3 nominally, essentially an approximation if they feel like they are ready before that point to go ahead and move forward with taking that poll. They can do so. It doesn't have to happen right at the 53-minute mark. But once the go-ahead is given across the board for the start of fueling, it begins at the T-minus 50-minute mark with first stage RP1 loading beginning. Again, here's a difference between a Falcon Heavy versus a Falcon 9. On a Falcon 9, we'd see RP1 or rocket-grade kerosene being loaded on both the first and the second stages simultaneously. Here we just have first stage RP1 loading to kick things off. It's followed at T-minus 45 minutes with first stage LOX load. T-minus 35 minutes will be the second stage RP1 load beginning. And then at T-minus 18 minutes and 30 seconds, second stage liquid oxygen load begins. Before that happens, we'll see the big vent from the strong back. Happens as the feed lines are being chilled prior to that second stage LOX load. Moving to a more similar timeline with the Falcon 9, the chill down of the the 27 Merlin 1D engines on the Falcon Heavy gets underway at the T-minus 7-minute mark, flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps to protect them from the risk of thermal shock and damage. T-minus 4.5 minutes, the strong back retract sequence begins. The clamp arms underneath the payload fairing will open up, and then the transporter erector, or the strong back, reclines about 1.5 degrees away from the Falcon Heavy rocket. Stays in that position until liftoff, at which point it'll pull back in a much more rapid fashion to clear the way for the vertical climb of that Falcon Heavy. In the final 60 seconds, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon Heavy's onboard flight computers. The propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. The SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch at 45 seconds out. The engine ignition sequence is initiated at T-minus 6 seconds, as opposed to T-minus 3 seconds with a Falcon 9 rocket. But all the same, if things are in good shape, we'll see a T0 liftoff of the Falcon Heavy. Again, currently targeting 5:16 p.m. Eastern, 21:16 UTC for our friends around the world, or in other words, T-minus 59 minutes and 15 seconds. In support of this launch opportunity today, the Brevard County Emergency Operations Center has activated. Taking a look now, a zoomed in shot from the perspective of the crew access tower looking at that Falcon Heavy payload phalanx. You can see the mission patch for the GOES-U satellite at the very top and center. Just beneath that, from our vantage point, you can see the NASA meatball logo, and just to its left, just out of frame, is the logo for NOAA, the other main partner on this from the federal government, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
Launch Control, this is the launch director on count to 1. Please pause the clock and let's go ahead and push the T0 to 21:26:00 UTC.
Copy, pausing clock and changing time.
And as you heard, we have an adjustment to that T0 time. We are shifting our countdown clocks accordingly.
And we are counting down to a 21:26:00 Zulu 20.
So again, as you just heard, we have a new T0 liftoff time for the Falcon Heavy rocket, pushing back to 21:26 if you're a fan of the 24-hour clock system, or 5:26 p.m. Eastern. Currently T-minus 1 hour, 5 minutes, 41 seconds and counting.